Hello friends, welcome you again, and let us today again discuss one more topic. As you know, last time we discussed about one topic that was related to polluters pay principle and precautionary principle, and that is all related to the Coal India Limited, this empty post for environmental engineering portion, right? So the today's topic that we are going to discuss is basically the greenhouse effect. So what we are going to do is we are going to discuss the basic part, that we will understand what is greenhouse effect and what is global warming, and at the end we will attempt a few questions based upon whatever we have discussed. Okay, so already know you have this idea that we are coming up with videos for the computer based tests for the management trainees, so it is already we have discussed with you in detail. So let's now go to this particular topic. So when we talk about the greenhouse effect, even though many of you have heard about this term and maybe having a little basic idea, so but if I ask you one question, that what is a greenhouse, because this greenhouse term came from the this term first, that means if you understand this greenhouse, what is greenhouse. So when we talk about the greenhouse, you must have seen some kind of these structures, particularly in hilly areas where they are made up of either kind of polythene bags, they look like that way, or maybe of glass, right? Something, these kind of sheds that you may have seen, right? So these houses, basically we call them greenhouses. Why we call them as a greenhouses? Because normally these houses, these structures basically are used to produce the different what do we call them, plants and all that, like vegetables and all that, particularly in those areas which are where climate is too harsh in terms of, like, it is very colder climate. That is why you mostly find it in the hilly areas, right? So that is why the name came as a greenhouse. That means mostly used to produce the green plants and related things, right? So now point is, why this kind of structure is raised. Now you may have observed this phenomena. For example, let's say if you are sitting inside a car, like, and let's say your car is parked in a kind of let's say in open space where sun rays are coming, and if you remain inside for a certain period of time, then inner portion will get warm. It will become too much warm, right? So what is the mechanism? How does it operate? The same thing happens over here also in greenhouse. For example, let's say these are the glass. All these in this structure, all these are the glass pans, you can say. Now when the sun rays come, they go inside, and then it makes that inner surface warm. That means it keep the inner surface warm. So this phenomena of keeping the inner surface warm within that house structure, we call that effect as a greenhouse effect, right? So greenhouse effect is nothing but that warmth that is created inside that structure because of the sun rays which are getting inside. We call that as a greenhouse effect. Now this is a very general concept that I am explaining you. How it happens, that I will be explaining you next. Now see, have a look on these lines over here. So a greenhouse is made up of glass, right? The glass has walls, and obviously this is a glass roof and all that. People grow tomatoes, flowers, and the plants. Now as I told you, because in case of hilly areas, or particularly those interiors where you are having a harsh climate, harsh cold climate, there if you think of the situation, day and night temperature is there is a lot of difference, right? So temperature goes below like -40, -50 also in some areas. So let us say in the daytime, even if you are getting the heat, but at the night time temperature is so low that these plants cannot survive. So if you want to make them survive, then whatever the heat that you have stored or trapped in the daytime, in the night time, that heat may be utilized to keep the inside surface warm, and therefore vegetables and plants can be grown over there. The greenhouse stays warm inside even during winters, right? Sunlight shines and warms the plants and air inside. The same thing I explained, I think. But the heat is trapped by the glass, cannot escape. So during the daylight, as it gets warmer, and warm inside is also same thing, right? In the night time, you will keep it warmer. Now let's go to the basic concept, how that inner surface remains warm. Because when the heat is coming on the earth's surface or in any surface, then obviously it has to go out also. But what is the basic mechanism that is operating over here? Just have a look over here. These are a few statements which are mentioned over here. For example, sun emits short wave radiation because it is extremely hot and has a lot of energy to give off. Just keep it in mind that if you have the concept that any body which is all the bodies rather, they emit radiations, right? The warmer the body, warmer the body, or that is more heated the body is, that more it emits the radiations of shorter wavelength, right? So if, for example, if we talk about the sun, so all of the energy that we are getting from the sun, okay, so that energy that we are getting is in the form of short wave radiation, okay, that they are having shorter wavelength, okay. So and in the form of, and what are the major forms of those radiations? So mainly they are either in the form of ultraviolet, visible light, and then infrared radiation. So these are the three main radiation forms that we get. Most of the energy of the sun we get on the surface of the earth. One is ultraviolet, other one is the visible, which is visible to us, and the third one is the infrared radiations. And out of all these, the most of the energy that we get is in the form of infrared radiations, right? So first thing that you keep note of is that all the energy that we are getting on the earth from the sun is in the form of short wave radiation form. And out of these three also, this infrared radiations, they are basically have longer wavelength, even though all are shorter in wavelength. But if you compare these three, out of these three, this what we call it as a this infrared radiation, they have larger wavelength compared to that. Now earth is much cooler. Now this I will explain you. Now let's go to this particular part again. What is happening? Now this is what we are getting over here. So you are saying that from solar radiation you are getting UV also, you are getting visible light also, and you are also getting what? You are also getting infrared radiation. These are the three radiations that you are getting, and all these are of shorter wavelength, because sun is having a very high temperature. Therefore the shorter wavelength radiations we will be getting. So when they come and they fall on the surface of this glass, then what happens is, because they are shorter wavelength, they have very high energy, so they can penetrate the glass. So these all radiations basically go inside that glass, right? Now out of all these radiation, if you see, we have shown you only one. Why? Because UV radiation, most of these are filtered by the ozone. So that is why we have not shown those radiation over here. So let's forget about them. Very small portion that is coming on the surface, because ozone layer is filtering most of the UV radiation. So we are left out with visible and infrared. So that if we talk about third one, this is the visible. So visible will get inside, pass through this glass, and will be reflected back. So whatever is coming, almost all of that is going back out of this particular window pane. Now you have the visible this infrared radiations. So these infrared radiations, when they go inside, because when they are coming, they are shorter wavelength, high energy, so they can penetrate. So when they penetrate, goes inside and they heat the surface of the earth. So this visible light also, some portion is going to heat the surface of the earth over here inside that particular portion. Now what happens is, when they heat the surface of the earth, obviously it will get heated up. But as I was telling you, the body which is at higher temperature, that will have shorter wavelength, high energy. But this surface of the earth will be at low temperature. It will get warmer, but the temperature compared to sun will be too low. So this body or the surface of the earth will radiate. It will also radiate, but it will radiate the infrared radiations of longer wavelength. So earlier you were getting a shorter wavelength radiation or infrared, but the surface of the earth is basically generating the infrared radiation of longer wavelength, and these longer wavelength radiations carry a low energy. So when they carry low energy, when they will, for example, emit from the surface of the earth, this glass window will block them. It will not allow it to go out, because they don't carry that much energy. So if they block it, then obviously it will reflect it back and inside somewhere that way. So then it will go again back that way. So it will keep on reflecting inside, and that energy remains trapped over here, right? So that is how that warmth inside of that particular greenhouse is kept, right? That energy cannot go inside, because it doesn't carry that much of high intensity energy, or you can say shorter wavelength, which can escape from the window pane. So that was the reason that it remained warm even during the night time. Now go to the next statement. What it says: the earth is much cooler. Okay, the earth is much cooler, but still emits radiation. I told you all the bodies emit radiations. Only difference is going to be heated body going to emit the radiations which are of shorter wavelength, whereas relatively cooler body is going to radiate emissions which are of larger wavelength and have less energy. Earth radiation is emitted as long wave because long wave radiation cannot contain small amount of energy. Now the ground heats up and remits energy as long wave radiation in the form of infrared radiations. Earth emits long wave radiation because Earth is cooler than this, all that. So this all I explained you, and I explained you it with respect to this greenhouse also and how that warmth is now kept, right? And over here don't pay attention to this red portion, because if there is any radiation, for example, which is having longer wavelength coming from solar radiation, there will be a very minute portion that will be reflected because it will not be having that much energy, so it will not go inside. So major role that is played, if I ask you a question now this way, which radiation plays the major role in keeping the warmth inside that greenhouse? So you will say it is the infrared radiations. And which one of those? Those having the longer wavelength, because the Earth's surface will emit the longer wavelength radiations, and those longer wavelength radiation doesn't have sufficient energy to escape out of that window pane or that glass window, and therefore they will be reflected back and therefore circulated inside that particular space within that particular greenhouse, and therefore keeping that area or that space warm. That is how the mechanism of this particular keeping warmth inside the greenhouse is. Now that was all related to this greenhouse when we created that structure. Now how it is important with respect to the Earth. Now see, our Earth is something like you are having, we are having atmosphere, right? So our Earth is surrounded by the atmosphere which contain different gases. You are having like carbon dioxide, you are having oxygen, then you are having nitrogen, you are having methane, and so many, ozone also, and so many gases. So you are having a blanket of different gases surrounding the Earth's surface, right? Now many of these gases which are surrounding the Earth's atmosphere, they behave, not all, many of these gases behave in a similar way like the window pane or the glass that behaved. How that behaved? Allowing shorter wavelength radiations to come inside and blocking the longer wave radiations, infrared radiations. So if that be the case, then what is going to happen in the surface of the Earth? You will say it is going to create the same situation like it created inside that particular greenhouse. Now see the effect that I explained you, even I gave you the sufficient hint. Greenhouse effect on the Earth. Earth atmosphere does the same thing as the greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, such as now we are having many gases like carbon dioxide is the most prominent gas, and other gases as I mentioned, they behave in the same way like the glass. Greenhouse effect is a natural process that warms the Earth's surface. When the sun's energy reaches the Earth's surface atmosphere, some of it is reflected back, and this that you already know, some of the energy comes and then it is reflected back, and some is absorbed by the Earth's surface, and the Earth's surface will get heated up. Greenhouse gases including water vapor, carbon dioxide. Now, we introduced a term called as greenhouse gases now. But as I told you, not all the gases on the Earth's atmosphere behave in the same way. There are some gases, for example, if I say oxygen or nitrogen, they don't behave like a glass, right? But some gases, for example, you are having a water vapor, you are having carbon dioxide, you are having methane, you are having nitrous oxide, you are having ozone. These are the natural, these gases are, for example, methane, carbon dioxide, water vapor, they are naturally present in that Earth atmosphere, right? Nitrous oxide, naturally also, man-made also, and ozone is also naturally present, and some artificial chemical, and some of the gases which we are releasing into the atmosphere. For example, we are having chlorofluorocarbons and hydrofluorocarbons. These are the refrigerants that we use in our devices, for example, ACs and refrigerators. So these all gases basically they behave in the same way as the glass behaved in the greenhouse. That is why these gases are called as greenhouse gases. Okay. The main constituent of the Earth's atmosphere, nitrogen, oxygen, are not greenhouse gases. As I told you, they don't behave that way. That is why they are not greenhouse gases. They do not play any role in the greenhouse effect. Okay. So this is a basic part, that how the Earth atmosphere can also behave. Now the crux of this is that even Earth's atmosphere can also behave like a glass that we used in that greenhouse. Now, if that be the case, then what is going to happen? Then you will say, obviously, if it will behave that way, then overall temperature of the Earth's atmosphere should increase, and that is how it is happening. But see, naturally when we say that means, just have a look over here. It means these gases produce a natural greenhouse effect on the Earth's surface. So we are having greenhouse effect now that we will absorb on the atmosphere of the Earth also. But one is going to be natural, another is going to be human influenced or human enhanced. In natural greenhouse effect, that means these gases blocking the, now see what is happening is, why we call them greenhouse gases? We said that these gases will behave like a same as the glass, right? So now these gases, what these gases are going to do? These gases are going to allow these radiations to come on the surface of the Earth. Which radiations? For example, infrared radiations, your visible light, or maybe some portion of UV radiations also. So when these gases, greenhouse gases, will allow those radiation to come to the surface of the Earth, now these will heat that surface of the Earth. But when Earth will get heated up, it will generate long wave infrared radiations. When these radiation will start going out of the Earth's atmosphere, they will block it. These gases, greenhouse gases, will not allow it to escape. When it will not allow it to escape, then what is going to have? The overall temperature of the Earth's atmosphere will go up. So that is why, since some of these gases are already present naturally in the environment, then this is the situation is. That means you are getting energy from the sun, but most of the energy, larger arrow, is re-radiated back, goes into the atmosphere, and small portion of the energy remains, right? So small portion, more heat escapes, and small portion remains in the Earth's atmosphere. That means overall Earth's that is warmth of the Earth's atmosphere is maintained. Otherwise, it would have not been livable. It would not have been possible for you to live over here had this phenomenon not acting. So if I ask you, is the greenhouse effect required or not? You will say definitely greenhouse effect is required, but to the extent that it is, if it is naturally happening. So for that, I definitely need the greenhouse effect, and that was always over there. But what happened is, because of our activities, we are releasing a lot of greenhouse gases into the environment, and the most prominent gas that you are aware about is carbon dioxide. So you are releasing so much, that means quantity of this carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, that the overall quantity of these greenhouse gases, not only carbon dioxide, you are having nitrous oxide also, you are having methane also, which you are releasing into the environment. So that overall quantity of these greenhouse gases has gone up in the environment tremendously. So now what is happening is, the larger portion of the heat which used to escape, now exactly opposite is happening. Smaller portion of the heat is now escaping, whereas larger portion of the heat is getting trapped within the Earth's atmosphere. So what effect you are going to have? The effect is going to have, the earlier, let us say, overall temperature you are maintaining was, Earth's temperature was getting maintained around, let us say, 30 degrees Celsius. Now that overall temperature has gone up over a period of time because of these activities. So this greenhouse effect, we call it as a human enhanced greenhouse effect. Because of human activities, you have increased the greenhouse effect, and this overall increase in the temperature of the Earth's atmosphere, we are calling it as a global warming. That means global warming, that is Earth's atmosphere is getting warmed up, that is warming over a period of time at global level. That is why we are calling it as a global warming. So global warming is simply the increased greenhouse effect on the Earth's atmosphere. So this I have already explained you, I think. So on the Earth's surface, now whatever I explained you, same thing would be highlighted over here. Just you need to pay attention to a few things which have been highlighted. You know, about 80 to 90% of the Earth's natural greenhouse effect is due to the water vapor and clouds, while the methane is much more potent gas than this. Now this line says that, okay, I told you, you are having carbon dioxide, you are having methane in the Earth's atmosphere, you are having water vapor also. They are all naturally present in the Earth atmosphere. But you know that vapor and clouds, they are in very large quantity because you are having water cycle going on. So they block a lot of that heat in the Earth's atmosphere. So largest amount of, if I say that all the gases present naturally in the environment, out of all the gases, which gas is having the largest greenhouse effect. So you will say it is the water vapor and clouds. Almost 90 to 80% of that natural greenhouse gas effect that you are having, that is because of only water vapor or clouds. Rest is because of this methane and or carbon dioxide. So methane is also very potent gas. That means greenhouse warming potential is too huge, but quantity is very less, so we don't normally talk that much. Methane is much more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. Compared to carbon dioxide, methane will give you more greenhouse effect. What does that mean? That if 1 ton of carbon dioxide present and 1 ton of methane is present, then 1 ton of methane will block more of the infrared radiations rather than carbon dioxide. So overall warmth will be created more by the methane than compared to carbon dioxide. So see, this relative comparison also you should know. Now, the absorbed energy warms atmosphere, surface of the earth. This process maintains the earth's temperature roughly about 33 degrees Celsius. That I told you. Naturally, this is more or less this average temperature is maintained. Right. Now the problem kahan hai, as I explained you, because of we call it as enhanced. That means now we are facing is that because of human activities, because we are burning a lot of fossil fuels, for example oil, coal and all those things, natural gas, etc. And we are also, like for example, you are clearing the forests also, you are having like enhanced agriculture activity also, are increasing the concentration of greenhouse gases. So this is enhanced greenhouse effect, which is contributing to the warming of the earth's atmosphere, which we are calling it as a global warming. So key points which I had explained you, the same have been highlighted to you over here. So this was related to. Now let's talk about the, when we are talking about the enhanced greenhouse effect, then what are the different sources which are contributing to that? This idea you need to have, relative idea you need to have. So we have mentioned over here anthropogenic greenhouse effect. Anthropogenic means that created by human activities. Humans are responsible for that due to different activities. First is anthropogenic water emissions are negligible. See, I told you that natural greenhouse effect is most predominant because of water vapor and the cloud formation. But if we say that, are we able to, have we been able to influence the water cycle to the extent like we are releasing the other greenhouse gases? No, we are not been able to influence by that amount. That is why we say that the anthropogenic, because of the human activities, has there been any kind of influence in changing the water cycle or in overall that water content in the environment, therefore blocking more radiations? No, that it's not significant. It is a very small. So that means we can. This is the point that we made. And the other one is the most predominant effect is of carbon dioxide generation. Roughly about, now see, because of all the total human activities, of all the different these greenhouse gases that we are releasing, only carbon dioxide if we take, that is contributing roughly 55% of the total human-made greenhouse effect, right? So combined together, all the gases that we are releasing into the environment by human activities, carbon dioxide solely is responsible for roughly about 55% of that greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide sources you already know: coal, natural gas, and all those fossil fuel burning and all that. And then another source of this greenhouse gas is, or you can say this greenhouse effect caused by greenhouse gas, called as methane. Methane contribute roughly 15% of the total human induced greenhouse effect. And from what are the sources of methane? Just have a look. Wetlands, termites, oceans. So just, you don't need to be very specific about it, but just remember, whatever the areas where you have relatively larger water content, there microbial activity will take place and therefore methane will be released. For example, paddy fields, rice fields, wahan par bhi you are going to have a lot of methane which will be released. Wetlands are also such areas also where you are having relative water content more, marshy area we can say, in oceans also, and all those termites, कीड़े मकोड़े, because of ingestion activities, जो उनकी digestion की activity होती है, during that process that this methane is released. Also जो आपके animals हैं, for example you are having goat, you are having sheep, or you are having this particularly cow. So because when they digest their food, then through burping मतलब वो when they just digest their food, then from their mouth that methane is released. So that is also one of the predominant reason. So human related sources created majority of methane emissions. कौन से reason है? See, natural methane release contribute 36%, whereas roughly 64% human released. And what are the different? landfills and all that. Livestock farming, as I told you, livestock, that means these animals like cows and these animals, and the most important source being the production and transport and use of fossil fuels. So fossil fuels are also, because we are having like natural gas. So in natural gas you have a significant amount of methane. So wherever you have, for example, whether it is a coal production, whether it is a natural gas production and all those, there you are going to have a methane which is getting released into the environment, in addition to, for example, these areas which I mentioned to you. So you need to have a little idea that which are the areas where methane is produced. Now another gas is the nitrous oxide also, which is also very potent greenhouse gas. So roughly you can have the idea, more or less the sources of nitrous oxide resembles with that of that methane. For example, fertilizer activity, that means agriculture activity, and chemical industry, for example, where you produce the nitric oxide also. So that also contribute to. And another area is the nitrogen cycle, because when you are using the these nitrous, the fertilizers which are having a nitrogen content, so from there also this nitrous oxide is released. And another greenhouse gas. Now this, just keep note of this another greenhouse gas, ozone. See, ozone, even though most of the ozone that we have, that is on the stratosphere, roughly at the height of roughly you can say this 20 to 35 kilometers range or something. So most of the most of the ozone that we have in our atmosphere, that is present in that particular stratosphere, which blocks the UV radiation that But small portion of ozone is also present in the lower atmosphere also, and that ozone also is a greenhouse gas, because it behaves in the same way as the other gases behave, like you are having carbon dioxide and methane, etc. So don't get confused with the ozone layer and this ozone, but this ozone that we are talking is at the lower atmosphere predominantly. We can talk about the ozone which is present upper there, because when radiation will go out, then that will also block it. But this is, ozone is also a greenhouse gas. So I hope you now understood that what is greenhouse effect, and what are the different these greenhouse gases, natural as well as that is human released those greenhouse gases into the environment. And also I explained you about the global warming also. What is global warming? Because the enhanced greenhouse effect, we call it as a global warming, that is overall temperature increase. So same has been mentioned to you over here. Just have a look. Global warming is the increase in the Earth's average surface temperature due to the effect of what? Greenhouse gases or greenhouse effect, such as we have already explained you. The same thing has been shown to you. If you see over here, larger portion was going out earlier, was going out into the outer atmosphere. Smaller was, this is a case of natural. And now, right now, because of our activities, this is the situation which is existing. Less portion of the heat is getting into the outer space, whereas the larger portion is staying within that atmosphere, and therefore overall warmth is increasing, because we are calling it as a global warming. Now, effects of global warming, you already have the idea. Almost every day it is in news. And so if overall temperature will increase, then roughly, if you see, if you compare it from 1906, then roughly this much increase has already taken place from this overall temperature of the Earth's surface, that means atmosphere. And major warming effects can be what? Ice melting. Obviously, we are having a lot of ice in the polar area, South Pole and North Pole. So obviously melting will take place, not only over there, but also in terms of glaciers we are having on the mountain peaks. So those will also melt. Many species there are many species which are very sensitive to the temperature, very small temperature changes. If the temperature changes by, overall temperature changes by a small amount, then it is a threat to that particular that particular life, right? Those species, so they may vanish, right? So that is another effect. Sea level has been increasing. So when think of the situation Antarctica, where you have a lot of ice, or Arctic region also, it will melt over a period of time. Then overall temperature of the sea level will increase. Or if overall sea level will increase, all the those island nations that you are having, they will submerge. What about the coastal area? Coastal area will also submerge. They will also will be influenced, right? So precipitation, and this may also increase across. Now, we have seen that in many areas, even if this year, if you may have noticed, in Europe, recently it was in news that temperature has, for example, in UK, this was the major, if even during the election, this is a major issue, like they are talking about that sudden increase in the temperature in UK, right? So in some areas overall temperature is increasing, and that is going to influence. For example, it may influence the that rainfall pattern also. So we don't know whether in India also we have seen erratic rainfall activities in different areas. So all can be related to that particular effect. Floods and droughts. Obviously, when in some areas because of the change in rainfall pattern, there may be drought. In other areas, there may be flooding because of that larger precipitation and melting of glaciers, etc. And less fresh water will be available. This is general. That means in some area there may be scarcity. So it is not that these are some of the effects in general that we can have already seen, and obviously over a period of time we are going to have a lot of problems. So these are the general effects of global warming. So I think this is how this topic has to be you need to understand. So now that I hope you have understood all these things, so we can take up a few questions from here, right? Just go through this particular question and try to answer it. Maximum natural greenhouse effect is due to. So if you have gone through the video, you will be able to answer. So I have already told you that we are having some of the gases which are greenhouse gases naturally present in the environment, right? And when we talk about the maximum natural greenhouse effect, so you are having carbon dioxide, methane, you are having water vapors and all that. So carbon dioxide and methane relatively are very less in the Earth's atmosphere naturally. So which one is naturally present more? Water vapor and clouds. So if we talk about that is the largest greenhouse effect that you are going to have naturally, then it will be of water vapor and clouds. Okay, let's go to this one now. Which of the following is the most potent greenhouse gas? Most potent. Potent mean which will block larger portion of the infrared, long wave infrared radiations, something that way. So which one of the following is the most potent greenhouse, dangerous or strong, something that way you have to interpret it. Greenhouse gas: nitrogen, methane, carbon dioxide, oxygen. Are they greenhouse gases? Are they greenhouse gases? No. Oxygen, nitrogen, had they been greenhouse gases, then you would have been, you can just think of the situation, right? It would not have been possible for us to live over there. It would not have been a livable place, as simple as that. So fortunately for us, they are not the greenhouse gases. What about these? These are both are the greenhouse gases, but this is more potent. Methane is more potent compared to carbon dioxide. Okay, go to the next one now. Among the following greenhouse gases, the emission of which one of the following is entirely anthropogenic? Anthropogenic means man-made or entirely because of human activities. Out of all these gases, which are the gases which are entirely released by humans, or they are that means we have made them and released into the atmosphere. They are not existing in the naturally in the environment. So methane, it exists in the naturally in the environment. We talked about nitrous oxide. Definitely, it can also exist in the environment. Maybe volcanic activity and other activities. We also talked about agriculture activities also, right? And other similar kind of activities. And hydrogen sulfide. So all these basically are this is naturally. So some portion, for example, hydrogen sulfide also we can have through volcanic activity. So hydrochlorofluorocarbons. So or chlorofluorocarbons or hydrofluorocarbons. All these are basically refrigerants used in like ACs, refrigerators, those devices. So they are all are man-made compounds. So this is entirely anthropogenic. Just have a look over here. Consider the following: rice fields, domestic animals, coal mining, wetlands. Which of the above sources of methane a major greenhouse gas? So out of these, which are the sources of methane? कहाँ से methane release होती है, जो कि एक potent greenhouse gas है, that you know. So are they released from rice fields? I told you methane is released in all those areas where you have relatively water content, right? Because of microbial activity, it is released into the environment. So if I talk about wetlands or whether I talk about rice fields, both are those areas where you are having a relatively larger content of water, and therefore this methane will be released. Domestic animals, I already talked to you: cows, farming animals, other sheep, or instead of cow, if I say cattle, that will be more appropriate term. Cattle will cover all that. So cattle, and then you are having one cattle, sheep, and then you are having. So these also produce through burping process, as I told you. And coal mining, whether it is a, when you are because it is a when you are like mining the coal or transporting the coal, in the process it will be released. And also for example natural gas. So natural gas, so you know already that natural gas, you are having a significant portion of methane is there, right? And even in the coal beds also, where we are going to find the coal bed, there you get the natural gas, right? And also in oils too, like for example where you are having oil wells, there also you have a this natural gas comes out of those oil wells. So you can just simply think of natural gas is having a significant amount of methane. So definitely over here. So all these are the sources of methane. What about this? The increasing amount of carbon dioxide in air is slowly raising the temperature of the atmosphere because it absorbs. Now you have to pay attention over here. If you have understood the conceptual part well, then you can answer. The water vapor of the air and it retains it. He is saying that this carbon dioxide is retaining water vapor and air. Wrong. Ultraviolet part of the solar radiation. You already know ultraviolet part of the solar radiation. Most of it is absorbed over there by the ozone layer, and a small portion comes on the Earth's surface. So this cannot be responsible, and you cannot say that okay, carbon dioxide something is related to that. All solar radiation, increasing amount of carbon dioxide in the air is slowly raising the temperature because it absorbs all the radiation. No, it absorbs only because we are saying it is behaving like a glass, so it is allowing a certain portion of the radiations to come, that is shorter wavelength radiations, whereas it is blocking the long wavelength radiation. Earth, because of having a relatively lower temperature or significantly lower than this sun, so the bodies which are having a lower temperature, they mostly emits the long wave infrared radiations. So Earth, when it gets warm, it radiates long wave infrared radiations, and they have very less energy, and carbon dioxide, or for that matter other greenhouse gases, they block those long wave infrared radiation. So infrared part of the solar radiation, more specifically which one? This infrared, more appropriately, out of all these, this is going to be basically it is a long wave infrared radiations which are blocked by this particular carbon dioxide, right? So D. So now go to this one. Carbon dioxide has low global warming potential among the major greenhouse gases, right? It is still the most important greenhouse gas. क्यों इसको बोलते हैं हम? कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड की ही बात करते रहते हैं. Every time we are talking about the carbon dioxide only. Why it is that way? Though we know that it is not the most potent. उतनी डेंजरस नहीं है जितनी आपकी जो है लेट्स से मीथेन है. So why we talk about it? Why? Due to increase in emissions. Is it correct? Of course. Because the quantity of carbon dioxide that we are releasing in the environment is too huge. Correct. It is released in large quantity. Meaning is same. Due to increased emissions, it is released in large quantity. That both, I think both these statements have the same meaning. Its period of stay in the environment. And one more thing that you have to keep note is, once the carbon dioxide is released into the environment, that it stays in the environment for a very long period of time, for hundreds of years. So it means once you have released, now you have to face it for next kind of century. Reason being that coming centuries, because it stays in the environment for a longer period of time, and the areas which absorb the carbon dioxide, oceans also absorb, but it is not that fast, or maybe also your plants also which absorb carbon dioxide. So it is period of stay is too long. So that is another problem with carbon dioxide. Too much we are releasing, and it is going to stay in the environment for a longer period of time. So D is going to be the option. So let's see the last question now. Which of the following are the outcomes of global warming? So this is a general question based upon your common sense also, and I have already discussed over there with you. The frequency of heat waves and heavy precipitation will increase. Is it correct or wrong? Frequency of heat waves and heavy precipitation will increase, obviously, but not everywhere. In some areas it will increase, and you're going to have a lot of variations. Warming consequences will be more apparent in northern Atlantic and southern Atlantic Ocean. What is saying that this statement is saying, because of this global warming, there will be kind of more, this consequence will be more predominant in the northern Atlantic compared to southern Atlantic. It's a random statement. It carries no meaning. There is no such study that okay, northern Atlantic will be influenced more compared to the southern Atlantic. So this is not, carries no meaning. No, is not backed by any kind of proof. It is something like saying that China will be more influenced compared to India, right? So increase in coastal flooding. Obviously, coastal flooding because of this. Obviously, because one is that okay, melting of ice, heavy rain, and obviously coastal area will be flooded. Other areas because of the this increase in the sea level. So it will flood the coastal area. So this is correct. So this is which one is correct? This is correct. This is correct. Small islands will be one of the first places to be affected. You know it. Small islands. So obviously they will be somewhat because of the increased. So 1, 3, 4. C is going to be the correct option. So that is how I think in this video I have almost covered this topic entirely, right, in depth also. So I think you may have enjoyed this topic. So as we are coming out with different topics on these different areas of this environmental engineering. So we'll keep discussing with you. So let's see you in the next video. Till then, bye. Thank you.